Hello, and welcome to Talking Legal Episodes. I'm Praveen Gautam. I help entrepreneurs and enterprises to build their digital brand and monetize it. Today, we're talking all about our wills. And in this episode, we're going to deep dive in our wills. So I have got a special guest, founder and our principal lawyer, Len Watt. Now, before I connect to him, by the way, we have been receiving a lot of feedback. If you really enjoyed our past episodes, feel free to just follow up on the YouTube channel, Talking Legal. So just hit the notification button and you would the first one when we go live. In fact, otherwise, you can also check our Facebook page and others. And if there's anything, feel free to give a like, comments, or share this post. Now, without any further ado, let me quickly welcome to Len. Welcome to the show, Len.
G'day, Praveen. How are you? It's nice to be here again.
Wonderful, mate. Let's. Today's topic is very relevant, and everyone knows about wills, but really simple ideas is collecting wills, and a lot of our viewers are curious, and that's why I just thought, why not we just bring this and and some of the basic questions we can deal with it, if that's okay.
I think it's a great topic. Yeah, it's very important.
Great. So, first, what's your as a full service legal, as a trusted legal advisor? What do you think? Can I ask my lawyer to store my will?
Oh, of course, yes. We store a lot of documents in what we call safe custody. I can't speak to everyone, but for us, we have a number of very, very heavy fireproof filing cabinets. And they are, off-site facility, and we store people's documents in there, and included in that storage people's wills. So yes, most definitely we can.
So you're talking, storage. Sometimes viewers might be confused. What the storage you're talking? Is it physical, online? Anything you want to say? Share that.
Well, no, it's a physical. We have fireproof physical safes, so that we ensure that. In the unlikely event that there is some sort of fire, that, to the best of our ability, that the people's documents are safe.
Right. So pretty much the storage is safe. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. We, like I say, the filing cabinets that we have, and we have a number of them because we have a lot of different documents. I would hate to imagine how much they weigh. A fireproof filing cabinet is a thing to behold. It's a very, very sturdy piece of equipment. It's like your general normal filing cabinet, but the drawers are significantly reinforced and fireproofed, and the documents are all stored in those particular filing cabinets, and most definitely that physical storage is safe. We generally also keep a digital copy. Just so that if someone comes to me and says, Len, I need a copy. I just need to have a look at something. We can potentially provide that digital copy as well. But the physical copies we keep in what we call safe storage.
Right. So that's very interesting. You said that you are sort of a hybrid way, both physical and also, if anyone want to know, digital copies, because I can understand, people might be traveling, people might be overseas, people might be relocate in, everywhere. So as long as they have a piece that, it is stored properly, safely protected, that's all, we want, isn't it?
And that's what we do. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So then on that note, what's your thought? Can, let's say, any of the family members, anybody can collect the will, or is there any certain person?
No, That absolutely not. This is probably a very important topic, and I suppose I need to be really clear about this too. Is that will belongs to that person, and we cannot give it to anybody else. So, for example, husband, wife, married 50 years. I've just come in to collect my husband's will. He's just not feeling very well today. Look, Mrs. Smith, I'm really sorry, but we can't give it to you. That's your husband's property. And unless the person who owns the will comes in, or they give some express permission to a person because they're incapacitated, and then we can identify them and we can identify the person. We can't give out the will. It's it's just something that you can't do. It's the personal property of that particular person.
Right. Unless if there is any authorized or anything, or what do you say? There is terms, isn't it? Legal terms. I mean, those who are mentioned in the wills, they are also, what you're saying is they are also not effectively.
No. Well, I mean, generally, no. The executor, I think, is what you're talking to. Or
Executors. Yes.
Or the beneficiaries. The executors are entitled to the will upon the passing of the person who owns it. So what happens in that particular case is that those persons will come into their lawyer's office. They'll have to provide a copy of the death certificate. They will then have to be identified as being the correct people noted as the executors, and on that basis, the original of the will can be handed over. So that's a circumstance where obviously things have changed, but that's the purpose of the will, and those people are there for an express reason.
Okay, so what you're saying is obviously death certificate once they pass through, and then only you pass to the relevant party. Okay, now that makes sense. I hope the viewers get a very clear idea. By the way, if you're just tuning in from Facebook or any of our social media channel, I am with our principal lawyer, Len Watt. We're talking about collecting your will. And if there's any specific question, feel free to just write in the chat. I'll bring that to Len, and we can deep dive, or else you can also email best to them at info@beckerwatt.com.au to Len and his team. All right, let's go to the second questions, which is a burning question for a lot of the viewers right there. So one of the questions which has been asked is, what happens if I want my will, Len?
Okay, so what you need to do is you need to contact the lawyer who's storing it, and you need to just make sure that when you attend that you have the appropriate ID. It can sometimes depend on the level that it's appropriate to have 100 points of ID with you just in case. But if you're known to your lawyer and you have that relationship, then certainly a driver's license, photo ID that can be viewed can certainly then allow the lawyer to release your will to you. So it's upon the lawyer to identify you as being the correct person, and then they can provide you with that will. However, generally, unless like a person is moving their will to another lawyer, perhaps they're moving interstate, there's generally very little reason to actually access an original will.
Right.
Most of the time, if a client comes to me, they can be given if they want to go to another advisor, a wealth advisor, or someone similar, then they can certainly be given a digital copy of that will, which we're happy to do. Once they've been identified.
Now, on that note, Len, as you mentioned, obviously, only once the almost 100 points ID is checked, or the correct person is checked, then you hand over the wills for a certain reason. Then would that have you also I would imagine, have you also seen people frequently have they changed the wills many times? Obviously, as the circumstances change, you change the will. So have you noticed a much?
There's actually at particular times. So, for example, the birth of a child is generally a point. Getting married is another one. Getting divorced. those particular, quite significant events in someone's life are a trigger to actually, look to change your will, because you need to look at it and update it. It's also probably a good idea, if a number of years have passed, to just revisit what you had, because you may want to make some changes.
Right, right. Okay, now that's clear. Now, also on that note, on the, just I'm just visualizing, and many of the curious these days, obviously, people, migrants, they may be coming from other parts of the world and settled down here. They may have, like let's say, they may have created the wills, but would that means that will is also have the same power in overseas or other countries, or what's your thought, Len?
There's a particular look. I mean, there are circumstances where people who come from overseas countries have assets in those particular countries. The effect of an Australian will, it needs to be what we call an international will. So it needs to actually identify that the person has those particular assets in another country, but it's also appropriate, because of the differences in laws between different countries, that that person potentially may, and depending on what assets they hold in that particular country, they may want to actually have a will there. But you need to note in both that each of the other wills exists. So in the Australian will, you'll note that the will overseas exists, and in the overseas will, you note that the Australian will exist. In fact, we had a situation like that not so long ago.
Really?
Yeah, where a gentleman had a will in New Zealand and a will in Australia, and he forgot to inform us at the time that he had a New Zealand will, and not long after that passed. It could have been quite complicated, but it was actually resolved easily in the end by communication. But yeah, a good example of making sure that those bases are covered.
That's a really good point. Thank you, Len. Because obviously, people these days, it's a global village. People are from different countries. Different, people are traveling. People are relocating. People are moving. So, yeah, definitely, this is something for to consider. So, what you are saying is obviously open communication, being giving all the informations, whatever you can on the situations to the lawyer is the best way to go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. It's always good to be open and honest. It's always good to make sure that the people that, it doesn't, not just your lawyers, but your accountants, any of the professionals that you deal with in your life. All of us are here to provide assistance, and we have obligations as to, we keeping people's information confidential, but we can certainly assist if we know all of the information.
Right, brilliant. Okay, now I'm conscious with the time now. While we just revisiting this, collecting your will, some of the viewers have asked, what if I do not have capacity? Can my power of attorney retrieve my will? What's your thought on that, Len?
Okay, so first off, what we need to, there's a couple of parts to that question. So the first one, we're talking about capacity, and what capacity means is the legal capacity to be able to sign or enter or provide a will. So the most common way to actually identify this is if someone is suffering from a medical condition, Alzheimer's, for example, and they are starting to lose that cognitive function, then they are said legally to have lost capacity, which then means that they don't have the legal power to make a will. So that's what we're talking about when we say capacity. So and when people do a will, they generally also do a power of attorney. So they will provide a power of attorney who will then take over particular parts of their affairs as they nominate in that power of attorney upon such events as, for example, them losing capacity. Now, the interesting thing then arises is, well, can my power of attorney who was acting for me go and collect my will? The answer is no, they can't.
Right.
The will is effectively in that circumstance locked up within the lawyer's safe custody until such time as the person passes. In the worst case scenario, you have a position where someone who has the power to act on your behalf gets hold of the will and can see what might come to pass, what might happen when the person passes. Assets can be juggled, things can be changed on the basis of a power of attorney that can affect who gets what when a will is finally read. So it absolutely not. There's no ability to get a will on the basis of you being the power of attorney.
Right. So I hope that's very clear for our viewers. Thank you so much for the insight, Len. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything which you think it is important on this topic, collecting your wills?
Oh, look, I think it's important just to remember that you can't just turn up and say, hey, I'm here to collect my brother's will. It just doesn't work like that. And some people quite often get very frustrated because we won't give them the document. But quite simply, we can't. These are very personal, private things. And with COVID and all of the things that have happened in the last little while, people are quite concerned about their wills, and they're quite concerned about what's going to happen. So people are starting to look at and consider these types of things. But it's important though that the person who is the owner of that will is the person who makes the request.
Right. Okay, I hope that's a very good insight for our viewers. By the way, if you're watching this and if you like the video, feel free to give us a thumbs up, comment, or if there's any specific questions, what would they do, Len, if they have some, they want to really know more, or they want to change, or they want to have a second opinion? What would be the best way for them to reach to you and your team?
Okay, so a number of different ways. Number one is info@beckerwatt.com.au by email. We also have the telephone number 1300-legal. And there's also the ability to contact us through our website. So any of those will get to us, and one of my guys will then set up the necessary next steps, and we can move forward from there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Len, for insights. And thank you for watching this. If you like, again, feel free to give us a thumbs up. Any specific questions, get in touch with Len and his team.